patch burn grazing is a grazing technique that has at its heart mimicking the native grasslands, the native herbivores, the bison, the elk. When they were here and there were no fences, how did they graze the land? And so this technique has at its heart mimicking that. And I have with me today Steve Clubine. Steve has over 30, 40 years of experience in teaching people how to manage native grasslands. But more than that, this particular piece of land where we're standing, he has 12 years of experience managing this with patch burn graze. So we're here to learn, what is it, what are the pros and cons, and how might you apply it to your place? So Steve, what is patch burn grazing?
Patch burn is where we burn a portion of the acreage that you're going to graze every year. But that patch that you burn moves around the property till you get all of it covered within 3 years. So it's a 3-year rotation. And each year you stock the whole unit as you would any other kind of native planting, not just for the burned patch, but for the whole acreage. And the animals respond to the patch that's been burned differently from the patches that have not been burned or were burned in previous years.
Okay, so we've got a 100-acre field here.
Yes.
Not that this is, but in our imaginations, 100-acre field. We're going to burn a third of it. A third of it was burned last year, and the third of it 2 years ago. And there's no fences, interior fences in this design.
No.
And so the animals go where they want on this 100-acre field, and where they're going to end up is where you did that burn, right?
Right. They'll spend 2/3 of their time grazing the burned patch, and 1/3 of their time burning the 2/3 that weren't burned that year. So that gets your rotation. That gives unburned areas a chance to rest, get taller and deeper roots, and the burned patch is grazed very short, very close, which is contrary to how we used to think about managing. We didn't want native grasses ever grazed close because they get weak, and they, we even got so conservative, say, well, they might die. Well, they don't die. They're very hardy. They're very residual, and they evolved into this dynamic fluctuation of grazing heights, not just within a year, but between years, or among years, I should say.
Okay, so basically, the grazing management is all determined by that fire.
Absolutely.
Where you burned. And they graze really heavy where you burned. You said 2/3 of the time is spent on that 1/3 of the land.
Yes.
So on the next third, 1/6 of the time is spent there, and the next third, 1/6 of the time is spent there. But you get just as many grazing days as if you would have just pitched them out there, burned the whole thing, or whatever, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how that burned patch looks that particular year will depend mainly on when you expose the animals to the pasture, to the native grass thing. And there's a difference in how you expose them according maybe to the class of animals that you have.
Okay.
I use stalkers. I get them at a sale barn or from neighboring producers around here, and I want optimum gain. I'll start them on some cool season acres. I accumulate them, and then the first week of May, I will move them into the native warm season because I want the grasses on the burned part to be 3 to 6 inches tall, but not taller, because that's a higher quality forage than if we let it get much taller. This is somewhat contradictory to how we used to tell people to graze native grasses after it was 15 or 18 inches tall. But for stalkers, grazing animals that we want to optimize gain, we want them on there when it's very short, and they will keep it that short throughout the growing season.
Okay, so you're actually starting when the warm season grass is 4 inches tall. Is that about right?
Yes.
Which you said 1st of May, you're in kind of west central Missouri.
Yep.
So if people are south of us, that's going to be before then. If they're north of us, could be after then. But basically, you're aiming for 4 inches of grass growth, give or take.
And it's not going to vary very much and across the country. But there you can see you want that optimum, Yeah.
So you put the animals in, and are you leaving them there? Like, how long do they stay?
They stay until I'm ready to take them out, usually in August.
Okay.
And the reason for that, this goes back to how we use native grasses. They'll gain more in May, and then June they graze a pound, they gain a pound less, in July a pound less, and by August they're getting down to where the grasses are trying to build root systems and put up flower stalks, and they aren't as nutritious. No matter how you graze, short you graze them, they still aren't as nutritious. So, but then we're taking them out and either taking them to market or moving them to an annual cover crop to maintain that gain. But during the time they're in there, they aren't fenced or anything. They get to graze by free choice, and that's how they'll spend their time on this. Now, you can change that if you are maybe concerned about how short it is or what the health of it, and you don't like the looks of it. And there's reasons for that. You can delay that stocking date a week or two, or let them get a little taller and taller, and they won't graze it as short. They'll graze it more of that height that you put them in there, and you'll have more. But you will give up some gain, animal days of optimum gain.
So the reason you like to put them in at 4 inches is because of the animal performance?
Yes.
And is there really a wildlife benefit, or is it just an animal
I don't
performance?
think so.
Okay.
I think the wildlife benefit is about the same regardless, except that sometimes, maybe some critters, horned larks or an upland snipe might like to keep it shorter. So maybe I have not seen that, but that could be a reason.
Okay.
But mainly it's for animal performance.
Okay.
With a cow-calf system, where I'm not into dry cows or cows with a spring calf, you aren't as concerned about animal performance, and you may have there a larger animal unit, a cow being an animal unit, a steer maybe being 0.6 of an animal unit, so you can have, you may have more forage. You can delay that great initial stocking, and therefore you can carry more animals because you've allowed yourself a reserve to build up. So that's another reason not to go on it as early with cows, mature cows or cow-calf. But it's all about animal performance. If you want the animal performance, it got to be in there early. If you aren't concerned about it, you can put them on a little later. And if you put them on later, you've allowed it to get taller, it will seriously change the appearance of that burn patch because the cows won't take it uniformly as short as will stockers. But they will graze patches down within that. And there's a difference between how stockers graze versus mature cows. Don't know why that is. But when I went out here, this was a burn patch this year, and I would find areas graze really short right beside a fairly large area that wasn't grazed very short at all. That's just the difference between cow-calf versus yearlings.
Yeah. So how do the bison react to it? Do you know?
Well, we do because, there are several areas that are using bison. Okay. And they still perform pretty much like mature cows, but they have some yearlings always with the herd, so you have some areas that are burned short. Because it's kind of a mix, but still graze pretty short.
Yeah.
So I remember when we had bison too, they're usually there continuously. We tend not to manage them like we do domestic livestock, where we put them in at a certain time or take them out. The bison tend to be on that particular pasture several months, if not year-round.
Yeah.
So they're there when it just begins growth.
Right. Yeah. Where else are they going to be if they're there year-round? Yeah. Okay. So we kind of went over how you do patch burn and some of the differences between cattle and stockers. Any other details you would give on how to do it before we jump into benefits and not so much benefits?
Just a couple things is just to make sure you have adequate acreage for your carrot, but it doesn't take as many acres as we used to think. I mean, that patch burn allows you to graze just a little higher rate, and just let the animals manage. There's another little thing that we see on this where you have paths and trails and things. With patch burn, that trail that was there last year usually shifts to a different location the next year. So problems which may occur from erosion because of trails, they shift over the course of patch burn. Whereas if you do a static system with even rotation or with just one pasture, those erosion problems resulting from paths tend to stay there and get worse. Yeah. Okay, so paths kind of shift over the year. What about drought? How does drought impact a patch burn grazing system? A good point, because those unburned acres are getting more growth and have deeper roots. The whole system withstands drought and continues to produce regardless of what rainfall. You can see a little less production, but in the 4 years that we've gone through with drought since 2012, 2012 was another dry year, remember, but since then we've had 4 years. Its production is amazing. There's no obvious shift in volume produced or animal performance that I can attribute to drought. It's very self-protective, let's call it.
Yeah, so it's really protective. You're saying, sure, that first year burn, the one that was just burned this winter, they grazed it down pretty hard.
Sure.
But then years 2 and the ones for the past 2 years that haven't, they weren't burned this spring, in other words, they're not grazing that down as hard. And so it's like this drought reserve that, well, if we ran out of grass over here where we want to be in the most recent burn, we just go ahead and go eat some of the grass that might not be our favorite, but, it's still pretty good grass.
Yeah.
And so it's like this inbuilt drought reserve mechanism.
They'll spend maybe a little more time on the unburned, but because it just has more available to it. They'll graze it a little shorter. You can tell a little more difference on the unburned than you can the burn.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we should go take a look at the different, the year 1, year 2, year 3, how long it's been since it got burned. Look at the grazing impacts of that, and then we'll talk about pros and cons and how people might apply it to their system. Sound good?
Before we leave this, look at this spot. This is just a few inches tall. Animals were taken off of here and marketed about the 15th of August, about a month ago. So it's had a little bit of regrowth. We've had no rain since the 1st of August till last night. But this was a closely grazed spot in the burned patch. When we look at the unburned, we'll see a lot taller growth, not as new a fresh growth, or it'll be taller on the plant.
So this is the burned section we're in.
Yes.
Burned March?
This one about the 4th of April.
4th of April, okay. And I just reached down here, grabbed 2 handfuls. This looked like a taller one, and this looked like pretty average, but on the shorter side.
Yes.
And so this is the regrowth. You removed them a month ago?
A month ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you removed them a month ago. This is the regrowth we've gotten, and we've got another month before frost.
Yes.
You're hoping that these get a little more growth on them and are able to recover for winter, store those root reserves.
They will, but remember, you're not dependent upon this because this is the burned patch.
Okay.
The unburned patch has a lot of residual. It's built its root system great, and and that's important for it'll be next year's burn, one of them will be. But what you have recovering on this one isn't as critically important because it shifts to the next patch.
So this is getting a rest next year?
This is getting rest for the next 2 years.
Yes, okay. Okay, well, any other thoughts about what it looks like out here in the most recently burned patch?
It will vary a little bit by, again, how it looks. When I have had tours here, one of the things that some of the people remarked on is, I'll pull this plant. This is common ragweed.
Right.
It is viewed offensively by a lot of your cattle producers because they're continuously and severely grazed fescue pastures will be a solid canopy of common ragweed.
And the cattle don't eat it well.
If you watch the animal, no, they don't eat it well. But I'll watch out there and I'll look over and one of them has a mouthful of ragweed, so they're eating it. But it grows so fast you can't. It just plain outgrows them.
Yeah.
This one may have been bit off by one of my cows, or may not have, or may have, but probably I don't mow anything. That will come up in a minute. But that probably was bit off by an animal, and this is the regrowth that's come from around the bit off point. The burned patch usually will have, if it's grazed from the first few inches of growth, like with stalkers, it'll have a heavy canopy of common ragweed. It doesn't interfere with the grazing. They go down and get the grasses below it, and it is not a problem. It doesn't reduce total forage biomass from studies, but it just doesn't look to some people as aesthetically appealing. So lots of times your producer will run and get the mower, and they'll row the pasture at a high cost per acre to do that. So they say, well, what are you going to do about this ragweed?
Right.
I say, not a doggone thing. Well, you can't just leave it here. It's going to go to seed. It'll spread. I says, it will not. Because when I burned that patch over there, next summer, the ragweed, not this ragweed, but it'll be ragweed, will be over there in that patch. And the ones we saw here will not be here. That's an annual, so it's not producing from roots. But it will not be in the previous year's burned patch, or the one that will be burned 2 years from now.
Yeah.
It shifts with the burn as a result of the burn and grazing intensity. Now, I said that two combinations. Grazing intensity releases it. So when I delay grazing, and this one happened to have dry cows this summer, so I didn't put them in here until the 23rd of May, I have some ragweed that's done, but not a canopy of it, not very much of it. And that's another factor. If you are offended by ragweed, and you think, what am I going to do with it? Then put your animals on a little bit later. Cow-calf fine, stalkers, remember, your objection to its looks is going to cost you a few dollars and pounds of gain, because you didn't get them on as early to get that high rate of gain. This was what your desire for appearance cost you is a little bit. But it's worth noting, because will shock to some people when they see it. I had producers that came back to me the year later, said, I just couldn't believe what you were saying. They came back the next year and they said, but you're right, that ragweed was over there and it's over here now. So it shifts. It's a dynamic situation. It causes no problems whatsoever. You don't need to spray it. You don't need to mow it. It's your vanity is going to control what you want to do on it, but it's not a problem.
Yeah.
And it's good, produces seed. It's somewhat good for wildlife, and insects also feed on the pollen.
Right.
Not a problem plant, only in your mind.
So that's going to show up in a first-year burn. That's
Yes.
First year of the burn, especially when you put the animals in on the early side.
Depend on how it's
done
managed.
that 4 inches.
You bet.
If we're going to get the sunlight down there and germinate that seed, and it shows up, but then next year, when this hasn't been burned for a couple years, we're not going to hardly see a ragweed out here. But we burn it again in 3 years, it's going to come back, right?
So it's not a continual problem. It's just a perception.
Yeah. So Steve, if this wasn't working after 12 years, you would have quit by now. I know, within reason. So you must like it. What are the benefits of this patch burn grazing system?
Well, it's simplicity. I don't have to deal with a lot of different water sources. I can have 1 or 2 places for them to water. I don't have to move it around. I just have to make sure they function. And in the drought year, that's been a challenge too, because you deal with lower water levels. But you still it's pretty easy to work with.
How about wildlife?
Well, I have quail here. I have a lot of birds. We have a bird records every few years to see what's here. The birds respond to it. It's a grassland that's healthy and it's vigorous, got insects to support those birds. I have quail that weren't here when I bought it and have stayed here ever since. I don't find that many places around me that's corn and fescue. So wildlife benefits.
Yeah, so I hear like grassland bird populations are seriously declining. And so from the grassland bird, you're saying this is wonderful habitat.
This got everything. They have insects that they need and have structure for them to nest either on the ground or elevated. As you know, some birds will nest up in the canopy of the grasses, and both those are supported in this type of management, either in the burned or the unburned parts. So you have both things that are a benefit for wildlife. Another benefit, back to the cow thing, is this deals with warm season, and that's mineral and water too, but mineral. When I shift them from the cool season to the native warm season, their use of mineral drops dramatically. I don't buy a bag of mineral the rest of the summer. I keep it in there, but they don't eat hardly any mineral, and I think that's because of the health and vigor and quality of the grass itself, and the forbs contribute to it as well. Now they'll still eat salt, which you want because they need the salt, but then I put granulated garlic in my salt to help fly control. So they have to have something that they're eating to pick up that garlic to help control flies. Yeah. And I can't get it from the minerals anymore because they're
choosing not to eat it. It's not
choosing not to
giving
eat
it to them.
Right.
Yeah. So simplicity, wildlife, the cattle do well on it, not only from the mineral standpoint, but from rates of gain. You're getting, what are you averaging on your grazing season?
On the course of the summer, I mean, it will be about 1.65 went to 2. You know, early on it's up in the 3 and 4 range, but as it drops off in the summer, by the time I sell them, it's down in the little over a pound rate. So you have to go, of course, into the summer, and that varies with the animal. I mean, there's no guarantee that every animal you get's going to gain 2.5 pounds a day. I have out of the same family of animals from a producer, I'll have one that gains 50 pounds and another that looks just like it gained 250 pounds. So it varies with genetics, I think, probably more than I can put it on anything else. And no producer knows how his animals are going to perform here because they're used to raising them, selling them at the sale barn, and away they go to a feedlot. So what they do on grass, they don't have a clue. It's not their fault. It's just that they have no way of knowing what animal was a good one or what mother in combination was a good one.
Yeah, yeah. Any other benefits you think of with the patch burn graze?
Well, that's pretty. You know, you're getting a high quality production, and that we'll talk about later on the benefits of animal performance, benefits of flavor of meat, and all of that. But the patch burn probably ensures that the animal is getting that by its choice, not by a mistake or not that you did in management. Maybe you didn't move them soon enough. Maybe it was over mature when you moved them to it, and you affected that animal's performance and what it had to eat, and maybe it could have affected its flavor and its tenderness. Then the patch burn, I think, ensures that those qualities and those factors are going to be present at all times.
Yes,
not just a factor of did I do it right.
It's a great method for grass finishing beef then.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay, so not everything is perfect about anything in the world, right? What would you say the biggest cons are about this system?
Well, it's the fact that once you get into it, you really need to do that burn.
Okay, so burn is mandatory once a year.
Burning is critical. I mean, there are some other methods, open gate stuff that you can use that gets intensity, but once you get it, you want to have that burn to get sure that any time you burn, you get a benefit of 10 to 12% gain as a result of the burn. Doesn't have to be the whole acreage, but just burning a third of it still gets you that 10 or 12% bonus gain that you don't get on an unburned acreage.
Yeah, yeah.
So fire becomes an economic incentive to you, and the patch burn rotation becomes an incentive to you to get done.
And so the fire is basically your rotation method.
Absolutely.
And not only are you getting a gain from it, but it's what's managing the grassland, if you will.
That's right, and it's as easy to do as you want to make it, and if it's difficult as you want to make it, but it's never. It shouldn't be viewed as an obstacle, unless you have some other reason why you just simply don't want to deal with fire. Maybe your neighbors doesn't want to deal with the smoke, and you have to do some more thinking and other things about it. But it's not a complicated practice. It does take a little thought.
You were saying that you burn this sometimes by yourself, right?
I can do it. If you do your backfires in the evening when it's really calm, I do it all with a backpack blower. I never use water. I have it on an ATV by hand. That's only emergency situation. And I used to train government employees to learn how to manage without water. And you'll never get yourself in trouble because you'll always plan for that. Backpack blower is all I ever use. And I can blow ground to bare clean line. I can blow the fire out on a backing fire. And watch your humidity. Don't ever try to blow it with below 30% relative humidity. And days since rain, you don't want it excessively dry. But all I use is a backpack blower, sometimes in the evening to put up my lines till everything's secure before I put my head fire on.
So the risk of the fire, I guess, is one downside, and the fact that you really need to get out there and get it done each year. I've read some stuff about like weed pressure, maybe especially when it's a perennial weed like bermudagrass that's a low growing grass. What's your thoughts on that kind of weed? And you may not deal with much bermudagrass up here, but yeah.
I don't, fortunately, knock on wood, have to deal with bermudagrass. And Another one that would be relatively similar would be crabgrass, which is an annual. But when you graze an area real short, you will often find crabgrass show up. But it doesn't like tall perennial competition, so it kind of moves around. It doesn't become it's never a problem right there every year because your grasses get taller and shaded out. Somewhat true of Bermuda, but not as easy. Bringing up that one, the Bermuda in particular, and Old World bluestem is another one that can be a problem if you get it in there. Some agronomists, I read this years ago, weren't very high on warm season grasses from an animal gain standpoint thing. And a lot of that had to do with because a lot of the research that was done on warm season grasses was done on those introduced grasses like bermudagrass and Old World bluestem that weren't the quality that the native warm season grasses were. But if you didn't have that to compare it to, you didn't know that.
Right. So you are a little concerned, you don't have much experience here with the Old Worlds or the Bermuda, either one coming into this, just not in your neck of the woods. But it is a little bit of a concern when people have those plants.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially the Old World, because it's not palatable. It's not preferred to eat by the animal. I mean, make them eat it, but if they've got a choice, they aren't going to eat it.
Yeah.
And therefore it's going to increase, and you have to figure out a way that you're going to control it. There's only a couple of ways to do that. Grazing management normally won't work. Bermuda, I don't have as much experience. I mean, if I got Caucasian here for one thing, or Old World, I'd have to get on it. It'll grow here, definitely grow in this part of the world. We got it all around, but fortunately I don't have it as a contaminant in this planting.
So with the patch burn, you think that like the short grazing on that year burn some of those unpalatable warm season grasses can kind of get a better toehold in with this grazing technique.
Sure. Even some of the cool seasons, fescue can be a little bit of a problem in there. I've kept an eye on how does it respond to the patch burn. I'm still trying to make my mind up on that. Bluegrass is here, and you can't manage around bluegrass either. And you put the animals in earlier, thinking they will graze the bermudagrass or the fescue, and they just simply don't. As soon as there's a bite to eat off of these native warm seasons, they're going to go to it, and they're going to ignore those cool seasons. It's just totally different than we used to think of it as what palatability of different species was.
Yeah.
What I have found when we started promoting this was, decades ago, was maybe a fourth of the acreage or a third of the acreage. But when you realize how much you're getting from the native, how much production, how much it's carrying, how much it's affecting gain on the animals, or something we haven't talked about is conception rate on the cows and the rebreeding cycle in the summer on spring calving cows, you find that you really can get by with a lot more warm season because you're getting most of your benefits from a total grazing picture from the warm season and less of it from the cool season. In my particular case, because I'm running stockers that I pick up in the spring, the cool season that I have is just a place to accumulate them before they go to the warm season.
Right.
So having a 2/3 of it was way over more than I needed. Even 50% was way over. Now I'm down to about a little over a third, and that still is more than I need because they just I'm not using it for very much. Someplace to be in April, and maybe before I load them back on the trailer in August. So the warm season is my bread and butter.
Yeah.
Said this some times ago. I had a guy at a sale barn, he thought about how we talked about wrote in literature and things about grazing native grass, and he said, how can you only graze that 2 months out of the year? I said, well, first of all, I'm grazing it 4, and second of all, I'm gaining 2 to 3 times more on that 4 months than you're gaining in 12 months on your cool season. So it pays off for me.
The thistles are amazing pollinator plants, aren't they?
They are.
For as much of a bad reputation as they have. So Steve, we've moved now, and we are in the Unburned. So this was burned how many years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And I definitely see, as we look out across here, there are more seed heads. The grasses are bigger and taller. When I was over there in the Burned, I pulled up one handful that was about this tall grass, and the other one was this tall. But I mean, we've got grass out here that way more seed heads, way taller growth and forage, even taller like over there. And so, yeah, tell us what you're seeing as an experienced patch burn grazer.
Well, this is where, they spend a sixth of their time, and they graze it very high level, and not down short, very high. And you can see with just looking a little bit, you can see some grasses bitten off, foot, 14 inches tall. And those are healthy plants. They weren't stressed or anything by being grazed short. And they've got bigger energy, bigger systems, and they just plain produces more forage because of the fact they get some 2/3 rest for 2 years. And it has the density and the stuff, but they still graze it. They're still getting quality out of it, out of the top of the plant, not down to the base of the plant.
Yeah, so it's not like they're not using it. They're just using it way less than they are the most recently burned stuff. So in
Correct.
effect, it's getting this rest, which is why you see the increased growth. It's because they didn't keep eating it quite
Sure.
as much as that over there.
It had a fully charged root system to keep that plant going, and constantly rebuilt, putting more into the root system all the time.
Yeah, so from the plant health standpoint and the soil health standpoint, really this is where you're building plant and soil health in large degree, is when it's been being rested.
Sure.
In effect, not entirely rested, but so you're getting both the rest and the usage all at the same time.
That's right. That's right. You see more grass in this particular picture than you do forbs, because there again, the grasses are getting stronger more so than the forbs, and so they tend to be a little more competitive against the forbs, particularly in the one that's on 2 years since the burn. Now this will be next year's burn, and so we'll see the real short grazing that we saw a while ago, and that this year's burn, we'll see that over here. We'll have optimum production out of this because this thing has a fully recharged root system to grow from.
Yeah.
Now this is where we feel like we get the most nesting from a wildlife standpoint. Okay. This is quail nesting. This is dick sisal nesting in the upper canopy. Field sparrows, savanna sparrows are all here. This is where you might also find Henslow sparrows, because they like real rank cover. And we do find them in the unburned portions, particularly 2 years since burn, of the patch burn. Whereas we used to think it had to be just rested, never grazed. Or I shouldn't say rested, but never grazed. But we do find them in prairies that are in the patch burn system in the one that's gone 2 years. We find the grasshopper sparrow in both the current year's burn and in the previous year's burn. So they like less cover and less density.
Yeah.
And from a quail standpoint, the grazing is important, because even you have all this last year's production and everything and this year's growth. That hen's going to put her nest here, but she still has to be able to find some way of getting those chicks out through here to feed on insects, pick up seeds and everything. So you don't want rank grass ungrazed, because it doesn't have the travel lanes and a way for her to get the chicks out without losing them.
Yeah. So from the wildlife standpoint, this is also, you want this rested part, because some of the birds like it more than the unrested part, the
Yes.
more grazed part. And some of them use them in different ways. So they like do one thing here and do one thing in the other part.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have best of both worlds, had from nesting to brood rearing. And those that fled, they can still be in the upper canopy and fly out from there.
Yeah. So Steve, your operation, you just run during the summer. You're a seasonal operation, right?
Yes.
And so the way you've incorporated this, you've got a little bit of cool season grass, but the rest of your operation is just this diverse native grassland, if you will,
right,
that you're managing with patch burn graze. And so I guess people can apply it to their own place by, doing something, especially if you're seasonal, you need more acres. If you're not seasonal, you would need less acres of the native warm season, especially if the cool seasons are not mixed in with it. But any other ways other than just like use it as it is that you can think of to use this in a management system on somebody's place, or how to experiment with it? How do I go about trying this out?
Well, that's a good point. Plant small acres, and if you prefer, and learn how to manage it, see how it performs for you. And like me, I started here with a pretty large block, but I've added, a couple, 3 acres here and there of places maybe that were not benefiting me in cool season or would be better in warm season. So you can always add to it over time by planting additional acres. Doesn't have to bite off the whole 1/3 or 50% acreage if you prefer not to at the initial start.
To convert. Then once you have a plot converted, just pick up the patch burn and try it for a year. Burn a third of it. See how it works.
A patch burn, by the way, theoretical, how big does it have to be? And my theory is it has to be only as large as will carry one animal for that summer. So if you're dealing with a steer, you may want 3 acres so that you can have a third that animal on that 3 acres or 2 acres, but you only burn a third of it. So that be as small as you want.
Yeah.
The larger it gets, the more variation you will see because the way the animals will move. So an acre burned a third is going to be pretty intensively managed, grazed to the other 2/3 because he's right there all the time. But it will change as you get bigger, more and more acreage.
So the bigger landscapes, you just get more of a mosaic of management, if you will. It's not so homogeneous across it. Yeah.
First concept on this was done at maybe Valentine National Refuge on Bison, and the author up there said you had to have 2,000 acres. Well, nobody's got that. So we started dealing with anything down to 160, and I've gotten it down to 50 or so, and that works out real well. But the dynamic shift, how often your animal comes back to it will vary.
Yeah. So something we've done, we don't do the patch burn per se. We have more of a rotational system, not super intensive, but we have used it, coupled the patch burn up in a way in our paddocks. And so we will burn one part of the paddock, maybe the part furthest away from water. And then the animals want to go there. And so they have motivation to walk to the far side of the hill.
Yep.
The
shape of that pasture, you mentioned the far away from water, and that's how we used to initially use fire, was a place that just wouldn't get used because it was away from the shade or away from the water. So you'd burn that part and they'd go graze that precisely. But also the shape. In this particular one I've learned, because I have a piece of it up here that's maybe 3 acres long. It's real narrow. And you see that they graze it differently.
Oh,
because normally you watch the animals and they graze, they kind of graze in let's say a clockwise movement, or maybe a counterclockwise movement. When they go down that long, narrow one, they go down, lay down, goof around, and then graze back. So that stretch, because of its shape, gets twice as much grazing pressure as the larger block where they keep moving around. They don't have to move back and forth on it. So sometimes I have to take a hot wire and hot wire that out just so it gets the rest it needs in the years that it's not burned.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Like when you're doing patch burn grazing, if something is not working,
yes,
like use a little bit of extra management. Go buy a polywire and use the tools that other people are using too. So couple them up when need be.
Yep, you can use that, and it's simply enough. But it takes a little observation to decide what you want to do. And the other end of it is just that once you'll have boundary fences that are hot wire. So my animals are used to hot wires. Once they get here for a little while, they may not come from the sale barn, or they've been exposed on somebody else's farm to hot wires. But once they're here enough, they respect it, and you can use that to help you move them in the different areas or load them. In my case, I use it to load them get them into my corral for shipping.
So what is it that when you're out looking at like the grass in that one area versus this area, what are you looking for to say, oh, I need to get them off of here, or that sort of thing?
It's just constantly short. I mean, year in and year out. Not just the year it's burned, but the years that it's not burned, they're still going down there and grazing it back till they're getting twice as much. So it's the height of the grass year from year to year to year.
Okay. Yeah. So 1 year short, that's fine.
Oh, fine.
3 years short in a row, not good.
You don't kill the grass, but you sure start affecting root reserves and energy of the grass, and it's going to quit on you. I mean, it's going to reduce production. It won't quit on you. We now know these things just don't die, but they do lose production.
And allows invasive plants in.
And then allow invasive plants in, more ragweed, more, whatever that you don't want to.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure to be out here and see your grassland, Steve. It's always fun to, as we were coming across here, my kids are actually doing the videoing today, and they were like, there's a butterfly, look. I'm like, yeah, you don't get this in a fescue pasture, do you?
Nope.
So it's fun to be out here. I've enjoyed the conversation, and for all of you watching, get out there, try to plant some natives, experiment with it, see how it goes, and let us know what questions you're running into.
We at Hamilton Native Outpost make these videos to share the unique knowledge that we have gained from over 40 years of working with native plants as we raise and sell native grass and wildflower seeds. If you found this video helpful, we need your help to get the message out. Please subscribe, share, like, and comment. It helps others to find us. Thank you.